On behalf of GBS, thank you and welcome. This is our fifth webinar in the ongoing Healthcare Executive Education series. And we're so glad to host these for our clients and for our peers out there in the healthcare community. We're glad you could join today. This is very timely and topical discussion. Carrie Davis will be presenting us on patient experience and patient engagement. I'm Jackie Davison. I'm the SVP of Business Development here at GBS, and I'm going to be serving as your MC and host today. Before we get started, just a couple little housekeeping things that we want you to know. You're in listen-only mode, and we'll put you on, you can ask questions along the way in the chat or raise your hand. We can also, we'll have a Q&A session at the end, and we'll open up the lines for you to say whatever you'd like to say. And so just let you know, feel free to ask those questions in the chat. You can put those in there, and we'll be glad to take them along the way. So what we've done along this last 8 months or so, as you've been with us, has been trying to create some strategic initiatives to partner with healthcare organizations to sort of provide insight and education for you as executives, drive top initiatives, sort of increase efficiencies with technology, set good business objectives as we're planning in these crazy times. And one of the ways we've been doing this is to provide this series featuring leading industry experts, regulatory and compliance, patient engagement, financial health, scalability and flexibility of your technology, security and infrastructure, all of these topics, patient satisfaction and more. All these topics we know are at the top of mind of a lot of you as leaders. So that's the intent of these webinars, to really make sure you get what you would like to know about it. For today's session, joining with us is Carrie Davis. Thank you so much, Carrie, for being with us. She's the Vice President of Patient Experience, and she's just a true leader in healthcare and in the patient experience movement. And she serves at Hanger Clinic, overseeing all their patient experience department, and has been featured numerous conferences. We're really lucky to have this big speaker on our panels these days. She's spoken at Cleveland Clinic Empathy and Innovation Conference, the Next Generation of Patient Experience Conferences, TEDx, HIMSS, and enjoying several other personal stories. Her dedication, and really through that self-discovery and servant leadership, she's really been able to intentionally design transformation patient experience at Hanger Clinic. She has over 20 years experience in various roles in the O&P field, including marketing and leading the Nation Empower peer support program. And I think one of the greatest awards that you get is when you get honored by your own company, when she's won the J.E. Hanger Award recipient, which is their highest recognition in the organization. Of course, she has a background in education and a master's degree from Gonzaga in organizational leadership, and really that concentration in servant leadership. And she tells us she's grateful every day that she's able to assist others and their lives through participation in patient care and organizational transformation. So please join me in welcoming Carrie to our virtual stage. Carrie, thank you so much. I'm going to let you take the stage and rock on from here.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Jackie. It's very nice to be here. Here's our agenda for the session today. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are at Hanger Clinic and my own patient experience journey, and then how that has helped evolve and shape the Hanger Clinic patient experience journey. And we're going to talk about what we launched several years ago, and that is Net Promoter Score, what it is, how it's administered through our organization, and how we use the information to really shape a culture of service at Hanger. So a little bit about Hanger. We are the world's largest provider of orthotic and prosthetic solutions for patients who need a variety of assistance in gaining independence and mobility in their lives. I myself am a prosthetic patient. I was born without my arm in 1971, and I was fit with my first prosthesis when I was 9 months old. That's a picture of my dad and I there. So I've really grown up in the prosthetics industry, and I've had the opportunity to try all different kinds of upper limb prosthetic devices, both myoelectric, cable-driven, and had the opportunity to interface with a lot of patients who are experiencing their own journeys, whether it be through a limb difference at birth or trauma. And so I really have found my home at Hanger Clinic, being able to help patients along their journeys, and it fuels my soul as well. So My Hanger Clinic patient experience journey and my very own patient experience journey are intertwined. So when we talk about patient experience and we talk about it at Hanger, you know, as I mentioned, we are the world's largest provider of orthotics and prosthetic supplies and components and care. And so when you look at our map and our footprint over the United States, you know, we have 800 locations all over the United States. And so many years ago, we, as our company grows and as we're able to serve more people, we really found we need to understand, you know, what is the Hanger Clinic patient experience? What is it that we can unify across the United States? And how do we define it? And then how do I identify best practices? If you think about, you know, an office in Bangor, Maine, and how it's different from what's happening in an office in Spokane, we really wanted to utilize the patient's voice to help us define, okay, what is patient experience, and then measure it. Are we delivering on what we say we are? So we started off about 5 years ago collecting Net Promoter Score feedback. And so Net Promoter Score is a way to measure and track how a company is perceived by its consumers, and in our case, our patients. And it really gauges the overall experience for the patient, and it's considered the ultimate question. Now, we have been collecting, you know, satisfaction scores in different methods over the years, but we really honed in on NPS a few years ago because if you look at the question that the NPS question asks, let's look at it together. Based on your experience with us on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend Hanger Clinic to your family or friends if they ever needed orthotic or prosthetic care? Now, that is not a satisfaction survey, is it? There's no satisfaction in that question. How satisfied are you? It's how likely are you to recommend? And that's really important. And that's why this is considered the ultimate question, because it's not a satisfaction metric. It's not a gauge of, you know, how well you did. It's a gauge of the health of your relationship with that patient. It's really asking patients, how much do you trust us to take care of the people in your lives that you love the most, your family and friends? So you can really learn a lot by asking that question because it really hits in the heart, right? And so then when a patient selects the score, the number that they provide for that answer, there is a second question that populates, and it is for those who give us a 9 or a 10, we ask, what did you like about us? A 7 or 8, what can we do to improve on your experience? And then if anyone gives us a 0 to 6, what disappointed you about our service? Now, these secondary questions, they really drive a lot of excellent data for our organization to use. And we use it in a number of ways. This is how the survey is administered. So it's connected to our EHR system. And when a patient receives a device, and just think about this, for me, myself, as an upper limb prosthetic patient, I might have a series of appointments with my clinician until I get my device delivered. And so at the moment when the device is delivered and I've signed for that, and that's called the verification of receipt, that is logged in our EHR system, and that triggers a survey. Right? And so within 48 hours of me leaving the office with my new device, it triggers this survey. So the experience is fresh in my mind of all of the appointments I've had at Hanger to the point of my delivery now. And it looks like this when it hits the phone. You can see on your screen there, it can either come to a patient via text or via email. When they click into that link, it goes into a secure web space where they can provide all of the information they want back to us. And here's a sample of what the patient would see once they click into that space, and it asks the NPS question, and then again, based on what answer they provide, it populates that second question and allows for free text. So this is how we collect patient data on a daily basis. It's coming into us in real time. So why NPS? Well, we really wanted something that was very simple, that aligns with our mantra of empowering human potential together. Together is the important element of our promise to our patients. And so how could we even measure whether or not we were empowering human potential together if we didn't ask the patient to bring their voice back into our clinics? And so this really allowed us to listen to our patients' perceptions of their care and better understand their needs. I think in healthcare, sometimes we make assumptions about what patients want, but this really tells us exactly what patients want. And, you know, we've collected over the years over 200,000 patient responses. So we really know what impacts the patient experience. And NPS has really helped us with that. So once we started collecting this data years ago, we took all of this information and we were able to define what the patient experience is based on the voice of the patient for Hanger Clinic. And then once we were able to define it, then we can craft and create world-class patient experiences based on what patients tell us that they need. And it's been really nice to have the information coming in because it really reinforces where we excel, and it also points out areas of opportunity that we have to enhance patient engagement and patient experience. So another element that's been really great about NPS is that when you get that detractor response, a person who gives a score of 0 to 6, that allows us in real time take in that information, pick up the phone and reach out to the patient to find out how we can resolve this, because, you know, we're aiming for 9s and 10s, and when we see anything between a 0 and 8, we know there's opportunity. And so what this has allowed us to do is rebuild relationships where a patient may have just, you know, gone away. Maybe they had an experience where they weren't totally satisfied or happy. They had to wait too long in the lobby for their appointment. You know, when we hear that and we act on it and we let them know, you know, this isn't what we wanted you to experience. We're sorry. Can you give us another chance? That service recovery really leads to patient retention, right? And giving that patient the opportunity to voice those concerns and then acting on them, it really shows patients we're listening and we care. And then finally, you know, with NPS, we've been able to trend the data, and having that data really allows us to make investments, right? With knowledge, with data. So it's just been, NPS has been a great tool for us as an organization, and it's not going anywhere. We are going to keep continuing to collect NPS data in addition to some other data that we're asking patients to provide. So the very first thing that we did when we started collecting this data is we put it into buckets and categorized what patients were saying to us, and we call those tags. And so we were tagging their comments into categories, and we took all of that data and we built what we call the patient experience leadership team. And it was a cross-functional team, all kinds of folks from all across the organization, office administration, clinical, marketing, PR, you name it. We all came into a room together, and for 3 days, we workshopped with this data from patients to really build and craft the patient experience definition so that then we could go and take it to the organization. And this was an exercise where we literally fought over the words, like, no, it shouldn't be this word, it should be this word, because we really were tuned in and honing into what patients told us mattered. And so this is our definition of the patient experience at Hanger Clinic. It is this in the center of your screen. We partner with patients, caregivers, and colleagues to provide a consistent, compassionate, human-centric experience on the journey to living empowered lives. And you know, the photos around our patient experience promise, they really do show that we are our patients' partners. It's not a, you know, you have an ailment, you come to us, we provide a device, and you pay and you leave. This is not what we are shooting for, and because we know that patients want that relationship, they want that human-centered experience, and so we've built our whole patient experience journey around this definition right here. And through listening to patients, we've identified 4 elements of care that truly matter to them. And when you look at what we call a tag report, where we take that free text, those comments, and we categorize them into buckets, you can see on this chart where it matters to patients most. And the very first thing that patients tell us that impacts their experience with us is the compassion and the respect that we show them. And, you know, we might assume that it's the device we provide to them, but that's really not it. And that really gets to the heart of care, doesn't it? When patients tell us, it matters to me that I feel cared for, that you show me compassion. And you know, we're in a business in healthcare where nobody wants to be a customer. And I think about that, especially for Hanger, right? No one wants to do business with us. And so, because it means something's happened in your life that has made you walk through our doors, and it's not a place where you wanted to be. So the compassion that we show our patients and hearing from them that this really matters has driven everything that we do inside of the clinic. And additionally, you know, providing that quality device that enhanced their lives, that's the expectation. But they also told us that education, information, and shared decision making is really important to their experience. And so that's part of our daily operations, is to make sure that our patients feel educated and they understand how to even make choices, because these are big time choices that patients are faced with, especially when something like, you know, our kind of care was never on their radar. And then finally, timely responsive care. So we have looked at different methods and models, and we're working very hard to get patients those devices very quickly, to turn that around as fast as we can, because we know that that allows patients to get back into their lives. So these are the 4 priorities that rose to the top with the patient experience and the NPS survey, and this is what we aim to deliver on. So then, knowing all of this, that allowed us to create trainings inside of the organization. And you know, Jackie mentioned my background in education, and I studied servant leadership for 2.5 years, and I continue to be a student of servant leadership. But we took this to our organization, and really we built out these workshops that focused on empathy and learning to flex that empathy muscle, knowing that patients really need that compassion in their experience. And then this definition, it also empowers our employees to deliver on that promise. You know, no one needs to stop and ask any questions like, should I do this? And is it okay if I do this for this patient? This definition, it gives you full empowerment to go and do whatever is needed to deliver on that patient experience promise. And so we, you know, I talked a little bit about transaction, you know, the healthcare transaction. We've got systems that have been set up to facilitate these transactions. You know, we've got EHR systems, we've got practice management guidelines, we've got bill pay and bill collection, right? That is very transactional. So we have changed the thinking, and that's broadly in healthcare, right? To be more of the transformational element and aspect of care. Because patients, again, through NPS have told us, this matters to me. And so it goes beyond just patient satisfaction, right? It's really about relationship building. And this is what has allowed us to really open our hearts even further to creating a nationwide, over 800 offices nationwide, that culture of service. Because patients told us they want to connect, they want to feel engaged, they want to feel empowered. And so beyond just what happens in our 4 walls now, we are expanding that to bring patients together, to connect them to one another. We've got all kinds of outside programs and mentoring programs for patients that we heard matter through collecting NPS data. So finally, some things that we do and have done in the organization to create that culture of continuous improvement and service. When we collect this NPS information, a lot of times in some of our offices, you know, across the country, they have NPS walls in their break rooms, for example, where they're posting comments about what the patients have said, and it's just right there for everybody to see every day. It really enhances that purpose-driven work, right? And it allows people to see that beyond, you know, we think about healthcare and we think the clinician providing the care and that creates the experience, but it's everybody. And it's the experience that you have on the phone. It's the experience of welcoming that you have with the office administrator. And so what creating these NPS walls has done, it's really shown everyone on the team that they have the ability to provide care. Everybody can be a healer in the organization, right? Also highlighting our 4 pillars, you know, we created this little monthly television show that we do internally, and it's called Way to Be Hanger. And it highlights those service champions. And every month we include NPS information, and we interview patients and their guests on our show. And it really has highlighted, for everyone in the organization, how important the work that we do is and how important it is to listen to patients. And then it's really great to identify and recognize those service champions in the organization, people who are always getting 10s, and really using them as a model and saying, what are you guys doing? Because you are getting these crazy high scores, and we want to learn from you. Also, when you have a score, you have something to measure yourself against, right? And so you have a baseline score that you want to get to, but as a team, you can say, all right, we want to get 10 more promoters this week or this month, or, it really drives that culture of what can we do to wow our patients so that they are prompted to and inspired to let us know that it made an impact. We also measure our turnaround time for detractors. So that is always a number so what that means is, when we see that negative feedback come back in, that we have a goal of within 48 hours, we've reached out to that patient, and then within 5 days, there is a resolution to the situation. And we track retention from these efforts as well. Now, in collecting NPS data, we've learned that there are many other opportunities for us to collect data from patients. So we've expanded our surveys to include 2 areas, one for upper limb prosthetic patients and one for cranial remolding orthoses families. We send out a secondary survey months after they've received their device to find out, how are things going with the device? Are you comfortable? Have we enhanced your independence? Let us know. So we're continuing that listening with patients in different patient groups. In addition, we are collecting outcomes from our lower limb prosthetic patients. So we've collected thousands of patient-reported outcomes that have guided us in understanding where are the pain points for patients, where do we have opportunities to enhance care. So really what NPS did for us is it started us on a patient experience journey that we continue on every day, and that we are always measuring ourselves against. And what it really did is it brought the voice of the patient into our team every day in real time, and it impacts everything that we do. So, patient satisfaction, that's one metric, but patient loyalty, the health of your relationship, something that we've really benefited from as an organization. So, Jackie, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Really just I had some questions along the way, and others we'll start opening up the lines for you to have some questions. But the first thing I wanted to ask was that great leadership session that you had. How long have you been collecting NPS scores before you had that leadership to kind of get yourself together? So what was your starting point? What was your beta set of data?
Yeah, we had about 27,000 points of data responses from patients at that time that we had gotten together. My job was to collect all of that data, put it into easily digestible buckets. But at that point, yeah, we had quite a bit of data to work with.
Okay. So do you think that someone should wait, as they start setting up their mantra and their missions and what really matters in their portion, should they wait? Because not everybody's going to have 27,000, but they might have a certain set of data. Was it 6 months or 3 months worth of data? Or
I would say you can start seeing trends pretty early, and when you start collecting data. So I would say, I guess there's no magic number, 6 months, 3 months. Don't wait. Just start looking.
Just start looking. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah, and I was wondering, how many of your patients respond to the surveys? Like, is it, what's a good response rate for you and the outreach?
Yeah, so we have about an average of a 19% response rate. And so we feel very,
Beautiful.
very pleased.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you don't get that kind of response from any other type of outreach typically. Okay, well, then go ahead.
Well, Jackie, what I'm going to say is that this is a very, it's a very simple, you can do it at a stoplight, right? It's a 30-second, give you a number, and then make a comment, right? So it's not pages and pages of how is this, how is that, because we're going to hear how different elements of their care were in that little blip that we have that opportunity to ask that secondary question. So I think that response rates, it's not cumbersome, it's not overwhelming, it's a very easy question to answer. And our office administrators, when patients are checking out and they've received a device, our office administrators are letting them know, how was everything for you? Did we meet your expectations? You might in the next couple of days get a survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. What you say matters to us and we're listening. And that helps generate responses too.
Sure. One more question. So the technology seems really simple, and this isn't a commercial for the technology, but I'm sure you looked at ways to get this done, probably internally and at several external things. Do you mind sharing who you chose and why you chose that solution?
Well, we have an outside vendor partner that we chose, and we did evaluate different companies, and we looked at different methods of doing this. It was important that the vendor integrated with our EHR system, and there are many that are out there that are doing just this, that they're focusing on patient engagement, surveying, and that sort of a thing. So I think it's more important, for organizations, think about your size, think about what you want to ask, and find the vendor that integrates with your EHR. And sometimes, your EHR systems could have this capability, and you just need to ask the questions if it does, have that in. It's really it's really about bringing, finding out what you want, what will integrate, what will be seamless, what's easy.
What can get you the data too? Because sometimes they might be able to ask the questions but not be able to compile the data. That's what I've seen in that process. Okay, now you have 800 locations, and some of the people who might be listening today might have, one location or a hub with 2 small locations. How do they take on? They might not have a person dedicated to customer experience like you, who could lead this up. How can they take that on when they have a full-time job? What would you say about that?
Yeah, so it's not a difficult position, right? And by the way, I don't look at data that comes in every single day from all 800 locations, right? So we collect the data, it goes into a Power BI type tool that helps us manage it. And I have folks all across the country that we call our triage folks, and they are the ones reading those comments and categorizing them every day. They oversee clinics. I would say if you're a single practice, it's not a big amount of work. It takes minutes to read a response. So you don't need a patient experience leader for your organization. You just need someone to identify that's going to be the person that watches the information coming in and make sure that they're responding to patients appropriately as needed. But it doesn't require a patient experience department. It just requires the drive and the desire to understand the patient experience.
Great. And I'll prompt others to come in after this next question. So if you have any questions, please unmute yourself. You've been unmuted and have the right to speak up, so please unmute yourself if you'd like to chat. The next one is always, there's an investment, not only of money, because I think that's not really the key here. We know that if we all do a better job, we'll gain better results from our patients. But there is an opportunity cost with projects you pick up, and going through the process. So not only the ROI financially, but what was the ROI organizationally? And I think you've kind of told that story, but a lot of times people have to, if they want to do a project like this, they have to find the ROI. So what were the hard dollar savings? What were the soft things that came out of this implementation for you?
Well, when you look at patient retention, right, if you're not giving patients the opportunity to respond and tell you about their experience with you, it was the example that I gave, well, people would just maybe go find somebody else to do business with, right, to take care of them. But by opening this door and asking the question and then responding, you have the opportunity to retain a patient that you may have just lost, that you didn't know. Right. And so the ROI right there becomes very, tangible.
Very simple. Yeah.
Very simple. One patient retained, could pay for a salary of a person who is, working on this. Right. Or you know,
the small portion of their time that they're working on it, right? Yeah.
I was gonna say the hour of their day, or the 15 minutes of their day, maybe. You know, that what one patient retained, that one life changed. That's the return on investment right there.
Perfect. And I know we talked about this prior to the actual live webinar, but do you use any of those patient-reported outcomes to help with research or anything like that, or make decisions? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So the patient-reported outcomes, we've published 2 publications around that. We continue to collect patient-reported outcomes and data that help people. You know, think about too, even in the insurance and the payer space, having that information directly from patients about impact of, say, a particular device that they've received, right? Going back to the payer and saying, look, this was worth it, that you know, you're funding these devices because look at how it's changing patients' lives. So yet we will continue absolutely for a myriad of reasons collecting patient-reported outcomes. It's just good practice.
Yeah, it is. And that's so true across every dynamic, whether it's a hospital visit, you know, a regular patient who's in for a well visit, to you know, and not just because you have to for a rating for CG caps or H caps, but because you want to know that process, not because you're required to, but because you want to know it. I agree completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so any questions? I don't have anything on the chat, but are there any questions out there? We always make people wait. You know, that education part in our wait for the silence.
Carrie, this is Pat Diana. How are you?
I'm great. Hi, Pat.
Great. Hi. Great presentation. But I do have a question. So you just mentioned that, you know, an ROI, you and Jackie had mentioned an ROI is patient retention. Have you been able to effectively measure the additional patients from net promoter scores that are, you know, given a positive light and seeing that patient growth, new patients?
Okay, I think, let me make sure I interpret your question correctly. Have we seen through NPS growth of additional patients added to our system?
Yes.
You know, NPS hasn't really, that we would have to probably do a little bit more digging into the data. So I guess the answer is no, we haven't seen NPS necessarily related to growth, but what I can tell you is, you know, that retention element, that is very easy to measure, and we have seen retention figures that are very encouraging, very promising. In fact, it's 3 out of 4 patients that we contact, that we're able to make contact with, we retain. Let's just say 4 negative responses, 3 out of 4. And then some people, you know, they never answer their phones. But I think when it comes to growth and NPS, you know, word of mouth, patients telling other patients that they've had a great experience, and just for us knowing what makes a great experience, and then having our referral partners, you know, take note of this NPS score that we have. I mean, I'm very proud to share that we have a score of 86. And if you look out in the healthcare space, we're like a unicorn. It's just, you know, unheard of. But it could be because we have such strong relationships with our patients too. And these are lifetime patients, but that's what we're all striving for, right? To be able to take care of people for a lifetime. So
awesome.
I don't know if I answered your question, Pat, but.
No, you did. And I know it's a difficult one to measure, but I think, like you had mentioned, word of mouth, and if you have patient satisfaction and your scores are high, like you had mentioned, then that's just going to be a natural outcome.
Right, correct.
Talk about the 86% in healthcare being a unicorn a little bit. Where are people residing as a baseline for those who don't know NPS?
Well, so we found it very difficult, honestly, to find baseline data, but we found 2 places where we think they've got accurate data, and healthcare bounces between about 72 and 77. And then, you know, there's a wide variety of different models and deliveries of healthcare. You know, you've got surgery, you've got ambulatory, you've got all different kinds. And so, but from what we've seen in the data that's out there through like customer gauge, it's around between 72 and 77.
That's great. That is amazing. I was thinking about what Pat was saying in his question on the ROI. I imagine that other people talk about you, so your current patients recommend. That's what I do with my providers that do a great job. I say, oh, you should go to this doctor because I think this is great. Or, if I had a bad experience, I say, as we always do, don't go there. But so I think, do you track on the inbound where people are referred from outside? I mean, if it's a physician, of course, they referred it, but do you get any referrals from patients? Do you track any of that?
Just anecdotally, it's not a formal tracking, but we certainly do. A lot of times we have patients, when they respond to the NPS question, they will say, I've already referred 3 of my friends to you,
so beautiful.
yeah. But no, we don't track on the inbound if they were referred from another patient.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else showing up on the chat?
Hi, Carrie. My name is Ryan. I have a question. You mentioned 19% on your back percentages from response rates. When are you do you ever stack that up or dissect that data? Because you're obviously not in an episodic type scenario where patients are going to need to come back to you. How does that number stack up to industry standards? And are you seeing that the NPS is helping? I mean, I assume it's driving that number up, right? I'm just curious if you've ever looked at it across the entire industry.
We haven't looked at it. We're happy with our 19% response rate. When you look at different, survey mechanisms out there, they have various response rates from patients. So we haven't looked across the industry, and we don't in our space haven't seen any published NPS results from other providers, O&P providers. So we just are kind of like, here's the Hanger Clinic score is 86 and our response rate is 19%, and it's hard to compare out there in our particular space. So, and again, you know what? That's what we call ourselves. We really are the unicorn.
It makes sense.
Yeah, we have lifelong patients. We have patients who are, need a knee brace and we never see them again. They go back to their lives and they're good, so we are that kind of unicorn, long-term relationships, quick episode, so yeah.
I think to Ryan's point too, you've kept it simple. It's a quick process. You do it immediately. So there's not, I've gotten surveys before that, come in the mail, I don't know, 8 weeks later, 10 weeks later. And I'm like, what are we even talking about here? And so I think you've kept it simple, you've kept it relevant, and you're getting 1 out of 5 people to say what they think. And that's an amazing response to take time to do that. So yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, any other questions? Nothing else showing up on the chat that I see. Anybody else?
Ryan.
It's a great question. Last call, questions? Okay, wonderful. First of all, Carrie, thank you so much. Your sincerity, your understanding of this field, you're certainly a leader in, I've listened to your TEDx and I encourage others to do so as well. And look at what just the culture is at the Hanger Clinic. They do an outstanding job, both professionally and personally at really that sort of servant leadership approach. Finally, I'd like to thank all of you as attendees for this educational session. And I hope you found some nuggets of truth and insight into what we covered today, and that it will prove beneficial to you and to your organization. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you might have. Before we go, I just want to take time to, there'll be a complete short survey that will come out to be part of our follow-up feedback. So if you'll watch for that to come, we would like to hear how we did today and how we can improve and do better for you. Our true goal is to be your partner. We have to understand you and your roles and to provide you education. So that's what we look forward to out of this series. Please press us for additional topics you'd like to hear about. We're been around for 50 years now, so we probably have the connections to be able to get the experts to speak. And for those of you interested, if you'd like send the group a link to the recording, that'll be available after this event. And also we have events coming up in March and April. Several of those are panels, some around technology and other topics that we have coming up. So please, thanks again today. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at one of the next webinars. Once again, have a great rest of the day. Carrie, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. Have a great day.